Hi all, Ted Simpson here with another great video for you today. Um, Another voiceover video. You have to forgive me here. It was so busy last week and so much going on in my house. I just have to paint and paint and paint and do the instruction a little bit later. So I'm covering this 12 by 16 canvas set in the landscape orientation. You see me scrubbing on just like a tablespoon or so of the liquid white, not very much at all. And if you might have saw from the thumbnail, we're doing a lovely winter scene today. One of my favorite things to paint, of course, the mountain under a nice sunset. And I just thought it's so gosh darn hot in the summer here. Got to paint some winter here to cool myself down. So back and forth, scrubbing, scrubbing, scrubbing. Now, you didn't see me add any more paint, did you? Light touch, just a little hint of color on your fingertip is all you're looking for. One of the big things new painters do is load too much of the liquid white, myself included, of course. I make all the mistakes here in my painting journey, and I try to prevent you guys from making them. So, look at this. I'm pulling down just a little bit of alizarin crimson and then mix it with some white. We want to start with a little pink in our brush. And look how fast, just kind of swinging the brush to and fro, these little cradle strokes. And drop a little on there. Not a big deal. Coming back with my same old dirty 2-inch brush that I used for the liquid white application, I just start pushing that color around. You get to be a little bully here and just push that color around till it goes where you want it. It fades off into the distance there, and no big deal. I come over, same little pile there, a little bit of the phthalo blue. Should have raised my easel up. There it is. Raise that easel up, find a purple color, lavender color, whichever you want to call it. I suppose with white in it, it would be more lavender than purple. And just playing with the colors back and forth. Crimson and blue, bit of white to lighten it up. Find out what suits you. And bam, just throw it in those little empty spots you left. And there it is. It's not a big deal. I think without me talking here, it gave me even more freedom to play around and experiment. Coming back with that same old dirty 2-inch brush, I just start pushing that lavender around, filling in some of those white areas that the pink left over after the pink. And you know what? You can always do some more, fill them in a little bit bolder, fill in some of those white areas, change the color. Look at that. I even added just a touch of extra dark to get a little bit of midnight black. Boom, look at how much bolder that color is. Variation, always a good thing. And then just work it. Push a little harder to move paint. Couple of light, 2 hairs and some air strokes. You know how Bob does it. Very, very light just to take out some brush marks. And just make it as soft and silky as you want it to be. Isn't that sky just nice and dynamic, right? It's not just kind of a boring flat sky. There's things going on there. So now this time with no white, I'm mixing up the crimson and blue, a bit of black to darken everything down. Look at how dark that is now. Let's get rid of that excess paint out of my white area there. Now this is just for testing. You want to see what color you make, mush them together, and there it is. That's what you see once it starts picking up the liquid white. But we don't want to mix them in now, so get rid of your little tester pile. And I think in this scene that we're doing today, I'm trying to remember back a couple of days ago when I painted this, couldn't find my large palette knife. Comes to be, I just accidentally put it behind something. But so I just said, what the heck? We all need a little bit of practice with the small palette knife. So when I do my mountain, you're going to see me mixing it up with making it with the small one. Before we do the mountains, however, we got to put in some clouds. Now you see it's the same basic sideways cradle stroke. And I just start dropping in some basic shapes. Distant clouds, just kind of lazy old clouds. And then with that super light touch, we're going to go over and blend them. Now I knocked the excess paint out of my brush so I can get a little wild and crazy with this. Pushing it sideways, blending them right into the scene. But hopefully they'll appear to you to be in front of the sky. You know, these clouds are hanging out, pushes that sky color back a little bit, makes them a little more interesting. I've been on a little bit of a run of clouds lately here, just practicing over and over, throwing a little bit of clouds in there into just about every painting, just fluffy clouds and stringy clouds and everything in between. So there's my small palette knife with my roll of paint. Now it's time for the mountain, building it out one step at a time. And apparently I'm going back to, I don't even remember this part, getting a little bit more of that pink color in there. Oh, that's right. I forgot to put some in the bottom of the canvas here. Ooh, still got a little bit of that blue in that crimson. Just a little bit of, what do you call that? A little red violet. A little more blue in it. Darkens it right down to purple again. And we're just throwing some in here down into the bottom of the canvas so it's a little bit darker at the bottom. Working our way up. And just pushing that color around. Boy, we really bully the colors today. Just knocking them in there. Blending it out. Who cares? Come back with my big old 2-inch brush. That tiny bit of liquid white in that 2-inch brush helps spread that color, pushes it into all the little nooks and crannies of your canvas. Now I'm ready to push that paint right into the fabric and make a basic shape. Just pushing it in there. Slide that knife and build out a basic shape. Now when I'm in my classes, we just try to do one peak at a time. But in my home video paintings, I like to just throw it in there. Make your peaks, make an interesting outside edge, as many peaks as you want. I'm doing the classic Bob 3-peak mountain. It might have a little bump or a lump, a little uneven edge here. But I'm also scraping off the excess paint as I go. I like to break it down in the class and we do all those steps individually, but that's basically what we do when we're trying to run through a painting a little quicker, is you just push the color on, scrape the extra off, And then using the 1-inch brush, I just sweep back and forth and blend it downwards. This step here works best if you don't overdo it. I'm just pulling the color away from the edge and using it to fill in the rest of the mountain. Look at that. The more you work it downwards there, it picks up that liquid white, lightens things up. Try not to go up into the top of the mountain too many times because you'll put liquid white up top there, and we want to try to keep it dark. Blend and soften, little crisscross strokes. Look at that. We created a misty mountain that doesn't even need highlights or shadows if you don't want to do it. It'd just look a little more silhouetted in the back if you left it like this. But having my small knife at the ready, with just a little bit of crimson into the titanium white, we can create reflected sky color. If it's too pink for your taste, I just put some away and there it is, just a hint instead. You find the color that works for you. Now it is a little bit of a switch using the small knife versus the large palette knife. Each one needs a very light touch, just letting that paint graze and fall off the knife. No pressure. And as I say to my students here, add more, that's fine, but don't keep going over the same spots, you know? Once you start slathering that paint all over itself, it starts to lose all those little nooks and crannies. So I'm adding more, trying not to spread the color that's already there. Just like the large palette knife, it's just got to be the lightest possible touch. There's so many different turns of phrase Bob uses here, you know, the skimming, the feather touch, the whisper on the mountain. Whichever one's whichever one resonates with you. And it turns out there I just connected my two peaks. Sometimes I like to separate them. Other times we're just seeing a huge face of the mountain with not as much shadow. And in this scene here, little baby peak off on the left side. White, phthalo blue, a little bit of my background color. Let's make up an interesting little shadow. Streaky, varied, quick. Now using the small edge of my small knife, you see how I can just sneak a little in that background peak? Same thing, no pressure. Try not to push the whole wad of paint into the canvas. I clean up the edge there and then come in with my shadow and just come right on down, right in front of that left peak. Grazing, grazing. Now, what's interesting here is we try to butt up right next to the highlight, but occasionally you have to just cover the edge there of the highlight. You know, I come up here, I kind of cut off the mountain just a little bit to get my shadow going. Now I changed that edge. I added a little more white and cleaned up that edge so that I can come back and put in the shadow. And it just, you play back and forth as you need to here to create your highlight side, your shadow side. Even that little peak in the back there needs a little shadow. And the idea is this mountain is living out there, and it often gets a little bit of mist, foggy at the bottom. Bob occasionally references happy little pollution. Whatever phrase you want there, and you're seeing a little bit of mist, a softness at the base of your mountain. So my mountain kind of just had already disappeared at the base there. We'll come in and mist it out after I finish this little addition. I've been watching a lot of the Joy of Painting with the new host with Nicholas Hankins, and he does these little swooshes once he makes his main peaks. You know, there was the Nike swoosh. This is the Nick swoosh. So I drop any new highlight in, and as Bob tells us here, any new highlight needs its own private shadow. So this little extra little peak, almost like glacier effect, got to put a little shadow underneath that as well. That same old dirty 2-inch brush, a few taps here and there, and sweep from the bottom up, creates even more mist and foggy effects. We blended out the base of the mountain, now we blend out the highlights and the shadows, following the same direction, tapping basically down and out to the right for the highlights, down and out to the left for the shadow, and then a couple of little crisscross strokes at the bottom just to soften everything even more. I tell my students, make sure you're sweeping from the bottom up. You don't want to sweep downward. It can really rip off all your nice little snow there. Now I took a little bit of that lavender color, added some white to it, and we're going to make a little foothill in front of the mountain, covering up a little bit of the mist. Not all of it. We need a little bit of that mist. And just tapping in a basic shape here. Nice line of our foothill, the top edge. And then just the corner of the brush, I'm tapping down with my 2-inch brush, creating mist at the base of my foothill. Finding that angle is very important. You know, it's hard to describe sometimes. You know, you just see the angle and you turn your brush to match mine. How about that? Tap a little color on with the 1-inch, and then bash and tap and crash it out with the 2-inch brush. And if it's a little softer at the bottom than it is at the top, you completed the step. Go over it as many times as you think are needed. Usually it's less than you think. Now maybe this foothill comes right down to the water's edge, so I'm putting my little water line there to really define where the water begins. And you know it. How many of these do you want in there? I just darken my color a little bit and I can make a whole brand new foothill. Ooh, that one's quite a bit darker, isn't it? Which automatically makes the first foothill look further away. As we work closer, things get darker and more distinct, just like that. This one here is going to get a little bit of a reflection. Finding the angle, finding the right spot there, pulling it a little further on one side than the other to match that foothill a little bit. Pull to the side and blur, blur, blur. I think I needed to get it up a little closer for my taste here. So you get that small amount of paint in your brush, soften it with the 2-inch brush. So dreamy, this scene, right? It's just super, super soft. This little bit needs a waterline as well. Just sort of scratch it in. The touch of titanium white is all I did today. And if it's a little off-white, even better. It doesn't always need to be pure white. Okay, look at this, mixing up a nice big batch of color. Lots and lots of paint there. I think I even touch, well, blue, the crimson, the black, maybe even a touch of brown. And now we have a big batch of color to make some trees. Fan brush, lots of paint, chiseled edge, smooth, heavy amount of paint. Hold that brush vertical with the handle up, tap down, make a skinny little line. Now, since I'm right-handed, I'm using the right corner of the brush, finding the angle there and tapping down, and you're just working from the center out. Let those bristles bend. It will make the shape for you. Let those bristles bend. That's what creates that hanging down effect. You see, I went back over it because I didn't tap hard enough. You gotta let those bristles bend, or else the tree looks a little weird. And we gotta give that tree a little buddy, little friend. Working my way from the center to the right, drop down, center to the left. Well, I think this first tree needs a couple of friends. Sometimes we need a group of trees out there, a grove, a cluster, a gaggle. And sometimes when you're making bigger trees, it covers up some of the first ones. That's okay. It's just practice. If it's not coming off dark enough, either you need more paint or you need to tap a little harder. I create a little bit of foliage by pushing up instead of down. Maybe some bushes, everything there at the base of the trees. Pull down a little bit to create this is more of a guideline than anything, to create some reflections of these trees. And then I push up to match the downward facing branches of the tree. And when we're making upward facing trees, we tap down for the reflections. It's just the reverse stroke. to get a basic reflection. We grab some of that paint and just graze over it. You push too hard and you'll lose all the detail, which isn't so bad. But if you want to keep a little detail of your trees, it's just a light touch. Pull a little to the side. You could use that big old brush too. Makes your work go even faster. Look at this. I wasn't happy until I blend it all into a big blob. But there's a couple of little branches left over. You can also create some leafy trees just by tapping your 1-inch brush. Oh boy, gotta find the right side of your brush here. Make that skinny little center line. Not really a trunk per se, except at the very, very top. It's just to help you keep that tree in line with itself. Figuring out the angle of the brush, creating those branches. That's the trick. That's the secret you have to discover for yourself. Everyone taps downward a little bit differently. So you got to find the angle of the brush to make the appropriate tree branch here. Now look at me. I always caution my students not to play around with the tree until the whole thing is made, but you'll figure it out. You'll build it out. Try not to mess with it too much. The trick with these big trees is to not go too wide too soon. Next thing you know, that tree will cover your whole world. And that amount of paint you're tapping on is able to cover those clouds, cover the mountain. If you just do it quickly with a lot of paint in your brush, you won't be mixing out your mountain and just blending it all away. Um, just creating a little indication of land in my uh, foreground. Let these trees kind of live out on the edge there. And push up a couple little bush effects. It's just the shadows there. Doesn't even have to be that dark. Just a little bit of color. Couple of extra fixes. Bolden out that tree, widen the bottom a little bit. See, it's a little easier to widen the bottom of the trees afterwards to get that shape you're looking for. Now, just no paint on the knife, pushing and sliding some of that color into the sky creates a fun little stalk there. And just pushing some paint up, you can create some little indications of background trees, sticks and twigs, whatever. And just in short order here, we have most of the painting done. We're just cruising right along here. So I think in today's painting, we're going to put in a little more trunk indicators there. It's a little bit of swirled, marbled brown and white. Very, very small roll on the knife. And it's more of just a touch and release. On some of the lower ones, it's just pull a little bit to the left. You just want that small trunk. And here it is, on purpose. If you don't like it or don't hit the middle quite right, just tap some color right over it, and then you can remake your trunk. Pull a little bit, just touch and pull, touch and pull. It's the lightest possible touch, here and there. There it is. Some of it's getting covered up anyway, so we don't need to do the whole thing. Makes it easier to have that trunk look a little more hidden. It's kind of nice here doing these voiceover videos. I'm almost like watching the painting again. I thinned down a little bit of my liquid white into the titanium white, add a touch of phthalo blue. But yeah, this is fun. When I come back here, I don't have to worry as much in my other videos here, going off script or just going a little nutty here and there. I can do that when I'm not worried about talking at the same time. Gives me a little more freedom. That's a fun thing to do once in a while. I know some of you like my live videos with the live voiceover, and I will be getting back to that as well. With, boy, almost 200 videos on my channel now. Sometimes I switch gears, and sometimes I'm just not able to do the voice live, but you've heard the creakings and the other people sometimes talking in the background. So that's what happens. Lots and lots and lots of little tappies, little frownies with that thin color. It just sticks right on top of the shadow. I can't stress that enough. We're trying to let the paint stick on top of the shadow. No mud mixing today. Sometimes you got to say that to yourself out loud. Give your own pep talk to yourself. No mixing mud. I think here one of the best things you can do is just practice. Just play around with it. Try different angles, try different amounts of paint. And what I'm going to do here is I dipped a tip of my 1-inch brush bristles and just pulling down only, let it work into the titanium white. Turn that easel, Ted. Turn that easel. Turn that palette so you can see it. Come on. There we go. We're going to create a very thin color. Very, very thin color. And it's just the incredible light touch, a bare push, a bare hint, and that paint comes off in that beautiful winter lace. No pressure. Find the number of bristles. It doesn't have to be all of them and mash that whole brush. No, no. Just a little bit gives you control in making all these little effects. Little bushes, big bushes. You can do big ones. Maybe even break out that 2-inch brush and do the same thing, but very little pressure. Work from the outside and work your way inward, covering a little bit of the shadow, leaving little bits of the purpley color acting as our dark spots, all the deep shadows. Now, if I just pull some of that brush sideways into the brush and push really firmly, I can build out some snowy stuff here. Look how I let it stay darker and darker in the corner. Of course, the more you work it, the more it's going to instantly blend in. So I come back with another load of the white, push and work my way back into the corner. Add a little bit of snow here and there. but let the shadows remain. That's one of the cool effects. A couple of incredibly light sweeping motions with the 2-inch brush softens it even further, takes out any errant marks. Yeah, that'll get us a completed painting. Now I think I needed to go back right after I shut off the camera and put a little water line at the base of the peninsula back there. You can throw that in anytime. Thanks so much for watching, folks. I'll see you in the next video.